Well, I seem to remember I was on tour with Asia when I first ever heard an early tape of the finished album. So I guess we got on with it, if you like, quicker. We started sooner, if you like, on Asia than they did on Reforming Yes. But it's not a lot I can say other than I didn't like it. What I heard I didn't like because I wasn't ready for the group to change because in actuality I don't think it changed that much when I joined, but obviously the world would disagree. But Peter Banks was a very good guitarist and he played very well on those two albums, and it was very easy to follow him, because I was, it would have been very difficult if the guitarist had been really crappy in Yes, and I tried to follow. It would have been. It might sound like it would have been easier, but there was a thread to carry on, and I kind of thought that Trevor didn't really. Maybe it wasn't his way, to kind of devise a way to keep that style. In other words, maybe bring a sort of Peter Banks, Steve Howe style into Yes. But with his confidence and his talent and things, of course, he brought Trevor Rabin into it. That's quite understandable, really. So, I didn't get off on it because I thought it was too hard, and Big Generator was too hard, and Talk was too hard. It was too tough, and in a way, it was too ordinary as well for me. I thought, although there were some clever things in Generator, and all three albums had clever things in them. They didn't seem to have much yesness in them. But there was, that can't be said generally across them. But obviously it was the direction that didn't appeal to me. Although I was freer in thinking, you could sort of like Asia was doing God knows what by the second album, and I didn't like that either. So I wasn't really adhered to Asia as a security. Although I was very disappointed that it couldn't follow on with a great second record, because the first record was actually a very deep, very strong record. Had a lot of very fun work done on it, and that shows. And we liked the record when it finished, and that means a lot, I think. I felt the same as you. Yeah, well, that went. I mean, now we can look back, and even the people that thought they were doing the right thing can realise they weren't. And Carl Palmer and I were absolutely sure we were doing the wrong thing by just going with Wet and Down songs and not looking at my music and any openings Carl could offer. So it's very disappointing to find that when you give somebody an inch, they take a mile. And that's kind of what happened in the production area, particularly where I knew that Mike Stone had done Journey, and then he'd done the first Asia record, and I knew he liked to blend Jeff and I together, which was a pretty good ingredient. But that's a good ingredient, but also getting the features right is also important, and getting the dimensions. So Only Really Don't Cry had anything like a mix, a serious mix on it, where it was somewhat steered or adhered to the group's idea of it a little bit. But the rest of the stuff just came out sounding really dinky. And where's the guitar, and why's all this got reverb on it, and where's the drumming? So it was disappointing because, unfortunately, at the time, Mike just couldn't mix it in that same dynamic way where the dynamics came through. They weren't there all the time in the first record. That's what dynamics are, If you have the concept of dynamic all the time, where everything's blended, everything's got buckets of reverb, it's going to sound huge, Phil Spector, did it, and kind of maybe fortunately he didn't have digital reverb, but, so GTR suffered a little bit with that as well, too much reverb for my liking. So, but what's the point? I'm not really saying crying over spilt milk. It's just that these are the things I've learned. And when a group likes the record, when the group's around, as it wasn't really allowed to be on the second album of Asia, it was much more divisively designed. And I must say, somebody there kept saying, take the guitar off this and chop this off and keep the guitar. And it was like, who are you talking about? So I was having a real war with the concept of being a blend artist as opposed to a feature artist, And you hear me all over the first album, and it pays off. And you hear Jeff and I working together. So yeah, some things are disappointing, and at the time, you're young enough and stupid enough not to notice how important it is, you know. Or you fight it and you can't win, and then you say, well, I can't win here, so like chasing mixes of Union around the world, saying, where's it being mixed today? Oh, you're just leaving, I can't come to New York today because you're leaving New York to go to LA. You know. Well, you've summed it up. That's what happened. I don't think there's much more I can add to it. I mean, everything seemed to be a good idea with Greg for a while, and then it wasn't. And then he left, John came back, and we had 2 weeks of quite blissful fun. And then all of a sudden, it was over again, and I didn't understand it at all. I got up and laughed and said, "Well, you know, I'm out of here." And you know, I guess they needed me a bit more than they thought, because, you know, that wasn't actually the end of it, even though that was, as far as I was concerned, the end of it. But it kind of dragged on a little bit with me coming and going behind the scenes. And then, yeah, then I was really busy with GTR and didn't want to know. So, but you know, it's not so much about music really, because, you know, I can play with anybody who makes music, but it's what happens around that music and the atmosphere people bring, their willingness, their happiness, their clarity. You know, it depends what they're like, you know, and that's what maketh a musician, you know. It's something a lot of people don't pay much attention to, you know, in their own lives, because, you know, we can all go through life very bullish and think that there's no price to pay for this, you know, but some people really do carve up groups, and they range from musicians to managers to record people, and they've all been somewhat divisive, thinking that what they're thinking is actually going to make things a lot better, and what it does is collapse everything. Everything falls apart and everybody loses. That's generally the outcome of these high-flying executive style decisions of, let's do this to this, and then buy that and put that over here and give them this, and then everybody be happy. You know, 6 months later, everybody's like in different groups. You know, they're not even playing together anymore. So that period is, if you can call, Steve Howe and Friends, which is kind of what we thought. We were just kind of trying it out. But then the idea kind of accelerated when Robert Berry replaced Steve Hackett kind of officially, or unofficially behind the scenes, if you like, but officially behind the scenes. And then we did start to make a record, and then between management and Robert Berry, suddenly he's doing something else and everything stops again. So it was Steve Hackett might have been laughing himself, you know, to sleep, you know, because we were floundering quite badly. And but there again, not because of the music, but because of the personalities and the mistakes and erroneous conclusions people draw from what they call their experience of things. And so that was a very big waste of time, and that was an extremely dangerous thing for me to do, waste my time. And but some projects you have to follow, you know, a certain length of time before you go, this isn't going right, jump off. But, you know, foolishly I've stayed on a couple of them too long, and they've almost been my downfall, because in that time all the momentum and security you built up suddenly stops, you know. Then it's all worry again. So yeah, very dangerous thing to have done those things. But I guess that's quite a lot about me taking risks, you know, in music. I mean, if I didn't take any risks in music, I wouldn't be playing the music I did. So, well, what happened was we kept wondering why it wasn't being edited very well visually, and it was because they had a lousy mix. They couldn't tell what they were supposed to be looking at because you couldn't hear it that clearly. So, you know, I hit the roof a few times, and then eventually a mix came along. And I'm very unhappy with the mix, you know. I mean, it's not an altogether good mix. It's, you know, some things conflict totally with when I'm playing. I'm stuck on the left side. And this concept of filming and somebody else mixing is just really, to be honest, pissing me off, to put it mildly, because, you know, we've suffered it too much, and it's reminiscent of the 80s when the group doesn't have control over everything it does, you know. Every sound that goes out is approved by the band. It's what the band wants. That's the idea. That's why you're in a band. what the fuck are you in a band for if you're not going to make the music the way you want to, you know? And there's no time that's clearer that that's the signal, you know, that musicians are putting out. Again, we're not all making punk music, thank goodness, but we are all making music that's free-spirited, you know, because we're not constricted so much. So, sorry about that outburst. Yeah, I mean, they re-edited it. They, you know, sometimes you see me when I'm playing a solo. Sometimes you see somebody else. How can I put it? I've never fully supported Yes on these film projects we've done, Keys to Ascension, and this one the same. I've not supported them because that's the way we've gone about it that's wrong, and the lack of control we have over the sound, which is, after all, that's our business. We are sound. Yes equals sound. If we don't have a sound, we don't have a group. So I reckon that, you know, it's so annoying for me to have mixes going out. That's almost what happened with Keys to Ascension Volume 1 until I sat there for 4 weeks, 5 weeks and mixed it with the people, because I didn't want another live album to go out with some ropey sound. So, you know, those things are quite difficult sacrifices to make, and somehow, you know, after VH1, the Hard Rock, which was the most unsatisfactory live sound we've ever had. So we just, you know, it's to me it's Yes floundering, not getting the artistic bit right. I mean, that's our business. So I'm very unhappy with it, and you've raised a very sensitive topic.
So
yeah, we're recording Homedale, the show in Homedale, New Jersey, on I don't know what day it is, next week sometime. Yeah, we're recording it, and also it's going to be filmed for a webcast sometime. Yeah, here we go again. It's every tour. Sometimes it's 6 times a tour. Romania, Bulgaria. Somebody wants to film you in France. It's like, give me a break. We just don't need all this stuff. We just need one quality film, you know. What it's used for is supposed to be for archive, you know, our own archive more than anything else.
now, you know what would be great?